Welcome to the Fan2Fan Podcast 5-Minute Frights, wherein, give or take 5 minutes, we'll try to share something creepy, kooky, mysterious, spooky, something fun and frightful that you can add to your to-watch queue as we all get ready for Halloween season. My name is Bernie Gonzalez, and on this episode, we're joined by Michele Brittany, Fan2Fan All-Star, as we talk about one of her frightful faves, the 2000 horror drama, Shadow of the Vampire.
Director F.W. Murnau had an obsession to create the world's most realistic vampire movie. He dug up an actor.
I'd like some makeup.
Well, you don't get any.
Who didn't just play the part.
But you're not feeding. No, you're not drinking her blood.
He lived it. John Malkovich.
How dare you destroy my photographer? Why not the script girl?
And Willem Dafoe.
I'll eat her later.
Shadow of the Vampire. Rated R.
It's a movie that plays on the idea that, all right, so they're making this unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, but what if the director and the crew actually were filming a real vampire unbeknownst to them? And this director was such a zealot to make sure that they captured everything on film, willing to overlook the feeding, overlook the fact that there's this literal creature who's killing people. But, you know, you don't want to let that get in the way of making a good movie. And this is such a good movie that I remember the first time I saw it, it was late night. A new movie starts on HBO, and I don't know what it exactly it is because I've never seen this thing before, and easily found myself watching the whole film for a movie that I knew nothing about. I knew about Nosferatu. Obviously, I like vampires. I like horror, so that's fine. But then this take, so original, so interesting. So how did it make it on your list, Michele?
Well, part of it is having an interest in silent films. The fact that it's so meta with regards to the process of creating a silent film and all the behind the scenes with regards to it really spoke to me. I did study silent films. My master's degree or thesis is on the city symphonies of the 1920s. By that time, I'd seen Nosferatu and knew about Murnau and a lot of his filmmaking by that point. So this definitely spoke to my interest and kind of my love for silent films. And so instead of going with Nosferatu, which I'm sure will be on a number of top 5 lists, I wanted to go with a little something different, something that is a kind of a love letter to the silent films. You really get an opportunity to really get kind of a sense of what it was like to make a silent film back in the 1920s in Germany. And it's just a wonderful fictional take. And I think John Malkovich's Murnau character actually kind of had a pact with with Count Orlock. You're welcome to some of the cast, but please don't touch my main.
That's right.
My main stars, please. You know, you can have anybody you want, and after the film is over, by all means, sink your teeth into whoever you want. It really shows how passionate Murnau was to capture this film and have an authenticity about his film, which is in keeping with Murnau's approach. I mean, because we have the sunrise with the lovers and, kind of that whole love letter to modernity and the rise of the city life and how that contrasted with rural life, not only visually, but in a more mental sense, and that traditionalism with the modern. So, again, it's the insight into early and the early filmmaking. A lot of people don't understand what those intertitle cards. And so I feel like, well, hey, here's how you get to learn a bit more about that, the editing and the acting techniques that were involved with the silence and why things look the way they did at that time.
Never thought of it that way. It's almost instructional in that way. If someone thought it might be, too boring to watch, the process, the behind the scenes of filmmaking for, these old silent films, this is a way, like you said, a meta way to almost show people, not necessarily a Ken Burns style instructional video on how they do this, but an entertaining way of watching the mechanics of how films were made.
Yeah, this is one of those films where I bet everybody just had an absolute fabulous time. And dare I say that the performances were delicious. The ones that were given by Willem Dafoe and, of course, John Malkovich. That pairing is just absolutely excellent. I've always been a huge fan of both, and particularly Willem Dafoe. Always have enjoyed all of his performances, and he does not disappoint in this film. And I really think that if somebody that is into films and love cinema, this is a must watch.
I don't know if you knew this. It was produced by Nicolas Cage.
I did not know that, and I still loved it.
But I can easily envision Nicolas Cage playing the part of Morneau or even Orlock. And I'm talking about a Nicolas Cage that now has become almost like a punchline, but very much the opposite. Like, I'm being serious in that he does Leaving Las Vegas. He works with Scorsese in Bringing Out the Dead. And then he gets into The Rock, that was 96, and then Con Air and a lot of those, Michael Bay style movies. But those are all in like the late 90s. So I could imagine he thought this could have been a vehicle for him. But, when you're doing like Gone in 60 Seconds, maybe you don't have time for a movie like this. But I can see a Nicolas Cage of that era easily slotting into either one of those roles. But certainly Malkovich and Dafoe did a tremendous job. Dafoe, even Malkovich, knowing that there's a little bit of tongue in cheek in his portrayal of Morneau, like, this is not real, but yeah, what would happen if you were playing this director and he was aware of what this person was?
And I love just their interactions. Like, it's like the constant negotiation of, you don't eat my crew. I need to get a shot. And he's like, but I'm hungry. But I'm hungry. Yeah, the acting is great. I love this movie. This was like a rental, almost like a random rental one night. Having certainly known about Nosferatu, I think I had seen like even the Klaus Kinski version at some point. Mm-hmm. My intrigue with silent film was kind of burgeoning at this point. So the whole meta commentary I thought was fascinating to me, and the performance just delivered this. Now talking about it, I haven't seen it in ages, but now I very much want to do a rewatch.
Makes you want to rewatch it, right?
I think this movie was how I learned that they basically like, well, we're just going to film Dracula. We just won't call it Dracula because we don't have the rights to it. But they're like, we'll just, in everything but name, we'll do this. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. They're just kind of going for it back in the 1920s. This is very interesting. So I appreciated that part of it too.